from the heart of Dubai, where tomorrow is being built today, to the world. Welcome to the CTO Show with Mehmet. Here, we redefine technology and reimagine possibilities. With Mehmet, delve into the riveting realms of AI, cybersecurity, and digital technology. Experience the thrilling highs and lows of startups. Immerse yourself in the spirit of entrepreneurship and witness the future of business innovation being written in real time. Now, without further ado, let's tune in and explore the future.
Hello and welcome back to a new episode of the CTO Show with Mehmet. Today, I'm very pleased joining me, Steve Tafaro. Steve, thank you very much for joining me today on this episode. The way I love to do it is I keep it to my guests to introduce themselves. So tell us a little bit more about you and, let's also put the stage of what we're going to be discussing today with you. So the floor is yours, Steve.
Thank you, Mehmet. And it's a pleasure to be with you and your guest this morning. I guess my background is going to be essential here to add value to your conversation. I've had 45 years of business experience. I'm 81 years old, believe it or not, and I feel like I'm 25.
Wow.
I started as a teacher and football coach, believe it or not, for 10 years. And then I left teaching to go into business in the early 70s and was very fortunate enough to be hired by IBM. Their training was exceptional. So going from teaching to technology at that point the training was invaluable. So I had a good career with IBM. I also spent time as head of sales and marketing for a software company back in the mid 70s which was founded by ex-IBM executives. The company was called Software Plus. And many people had difficulty spelling the word software in those days. And then after that, I was the head of retail industry marketing with Oracle. I left. I started my own business, Tafaro & Associates, in 1990. And for 20 years, I was hired as an interim president and executive with 11 companies to essentially grow sales and shareholder value. These companies needed to grow, and that's what it wasn't a turnaround or anything. I was brought in to lead the growth of the company. So I had tremendous experience, and they consisted of companies like Bell Atlantic Software Systems, a company called Investran, which was the leading portfolio management partnership accounting system in those days. I even did work with the Brillo Purex brands and so forth. So I had a diverse experiences, if you will. But at the end of the day, it was all about growth. From 2013 to 2021, I chaired a CEO peer advisory board in conjunction with Vistage International, which is the largest CEO entity in the world, and I had a group of CEOs, 20 CEOs that were on my board, and we talked about leadership and how they would grow and develop their business. Today, I write. I'm an author, a speaker, and I spend my time doing very high level advisory work with CEOs, primarily in the SaaS business. So that's me.
Great. Thank you very much, Steve. And, wow, what a great energy. And you're young, Steve.
I tell you what, I'm very fortunate.
Of course. And we always, I say, and personally, I was very blessed to have also like veterans like yourself, Steve, with me on the show. And, the benefit of that is, we need to pass this wisdom and knowledge that you have gathered over all these years to the new generation. And this is part of what is this show all about. So saying that, the first thing I want to ask you, Steve, because, you've seen it all, especially because you had the chance to work with the big giants like IBM and Oracle and others. And we touched base a little bit on the SaaS. So let me start from, and you talked about growth. So how things, from your perspective, how things have shifted when it comes to growing a business from the old days when people were, just selling hardware, and then later, of course, software, but which was like a little bit kind of commoditized, I would say, to this new era of the software as a service and SaaS. So how the strategies started to get differentiated, how the persona of the buyers also have differentiated between back in the days and today.
Well, that's a great question, and it has a lot of implications to it. So I'll just get up 1,000 feet and say that
sure.
In the old days, software was sold like any other product, right? I mean, you would buy it, typically amortize it over, let's say, a 5-year period. You'd install it on your computers. So the vendor sold the software, and the obligation of the vendor at that point was to maintain it. And so, the relationship with the customer was somewhat casual, and the companies had to every month had to sell new deals and grow. Today, us cloud-based SaaS companies deliver their solutions in the form of renewable annual subscriptions, and that is a game changer. So, regardless of the total contract value of a license agreement, revenues are recognized month to month. So let's say you sell a 3-year license in a SaaS for a SaaS solution of worth $72,000 with a monthly fee of $2,000. The amount that is booked is $72,000. So bookings are a forward-looking metric, but the amount of revenue that can be recognized is only $2,000 per month. This presents some problems for early stage companies and great opportunities. So the problems are, since revenue is recognized month to month, early stage SaaS companies require more upfront capital to develop the network and so forth. And they're forced to underwrite the delay in payment as they build and operate their network. However, so the path to profitability is a little longer. However, SaaS businesses are highly predictable. The bookings number is a great number for investors to see, the future value of the company. They're highly scalable, and growth is organic. So when you look at that and those things, you say to yourself, okay, what do we need to do to execute flawlessly in a SaaS environment? And I think you need to do 3 things. You need to continue to sell new business. So you need a new account sales organization. But more important, you need to be very customer-centric and build your relationship with the customer. The customer has to be thought of as a customer for life. That is a major difference. You need to have an account management group that works very closely with existing customers and facilitates problem solving and growth opportunities, which is different from new account selling. Totally different capabilities and thought process. And you need to be totally integrated with marketing. So there's an integration of marketing, new account selling, and account management that has to be totally integrated. The reason is, in order to have a customer for life, they have to get value from your system. They also have to see your company as a company that will be around for a long period of time, that you are a leader in the industry. Marketing does that. So I think that is critical as you establish a very customer-centric group of entities. And the other thing I'll say, everything has to be based on value-based selling. And the reason I say that, Mehmet, is, and I'll stop in a minute here, is that one of the things that have changed is the internet. Today, people look at the internet as a selling medium. I look at it as a buying medium. because 60%, 57 to 60% of customers, potential customers, do not engage a sales team early on. They only engage when they're ready to start making a decision. So a lot of the information they're getting is through the internet, through marketing. And so when a salesperson arrives, they're not looking to know more about what you do, your products. They're looking to see how you can add value to their business. So built into the sales process and the account management process has to be value-based selling. And that's essentially the differences that I would say over the years that has happened.
Steve, like you just touched on many things that I already planned to ask you about, and you cover it. But I want to go one by one, and this is very beneficial for both like established organization, I would say today, because for someone who's seen the evolution of how the sale organization in a company can be structured and how you can do the growth, and you touch base on the difference between keep acquiring new customers and at the same time avoid the churn from existing ones. So because now we have different metrics in the game. And you mentioned something about the marketing. I want to start first from the model itself, Steve, and maybe it's kind of a controversial question. I know that people sometimes they agree with me or they disagree with me, but I still ask this question, Steve, till today. And I'm asking this question because sometimes I talk to customers as well. I was in the field sales myself also for some time. I'm still in today as well in some shape. Now, from business perspective, SaaS is of course very predictable because, as you mentioned, we know how much we're gonna have, whether you measure this in MRR or ARR, whatever way you want to do it. But from customer perspective, sometimes still we hear about this friction, and they feel like although the model was presented to have something which we call it OPEX, operations cost versus CAPEX, which is capital cost. Do you think this debate is settled? Do you think that, the people who are still pushing back on having a SaaS licensing model are outdated kind of, or there is still some space to have a mix between, a SaaS offering and, as we used to call it back in the days, perpetual license plus support? Because, some of the customers that I spoke with, and was justifying because, I work with companies that they flipped the switch between having perpetual license and going to a subscription model. And they said, hey, I understand where you're coming from, but I was already paying you on yearly basis my support contract. So why I need to pay the license on a contract base as well? Do you think that this will fade after a while? Do you think that we're going to have still this mix between the two worlds? How do you envision the future to be?
I think for if you are selling solutions that are complex, in other words, a number of people in an organization have to agree, a number of buyers have to agree that, we want this solution, and it deals more with a lot of complexity of the business. I think a SaaS model will win out over time. I mean, I could I could say we have a SaaS model. However, you can purchase the system and we'll still deliver it through, a software as a service type operation. You're going to purchase it for, maybe this is going back to that instead of us paying $72,000 for a 3-year license, the system will cost you $500,000. You can buy it, and we're going to service it on a SaaS basis. Yeah, I mean, I can make that argument, and it may be good for some people. I don't know. I think there's a difference between how you pay for it and how you finance it versus how it's delivered. And I think the delivery with the internet today and with, operating a network and so forth. If a company doesn't have to do that, a SaaS environment is better, in my opinion. I don't know if I've answered your question, but
you did perfectly.
But I think a lot of people confuse it. I mean, if you said to me, you know what, I would rather purchase the software. Can I still purchase it and have you host it? I'd say, sure. Our normal, but here's what we can do. I just think when you look at the break-even point between software that would be purchased and that would be a subscription based, there's about 7 or 8 years. Okay, so maybe 7 years of subscriptions would equal the purchase price. I'm generalizing here. So SaaS companies have to have a customer for life. I mean, it is, they can't look at it as they have to have an organization that is customer centric, and every part of their culture has to be such that we look at this customer for life, and we have to continuously add value. I'll tell you, and the profitability in a SaaS business is huge. I mean, if you think, let's assume you sell $1 million of SaaS licenses, bookings in a year, and you spend $1.2 million to sell it. You're saying, well, gee, that, and plus some money to operate the network, that's not a good model. But the following year, those customers, you don't have that $1 million, $2 million cost anymore. So the margins grow in year 2 and 3 tremendously. And if you can keep that customer for another 3 years or more, that is a highly profitable business. So I think the profit opportunities would also win out over traditional,
Absolutely. And to your point, Steve, I think, some of the confusion that happens sometimes is, because when we say SaaS, and I know even in the US, even in some parts in Europe, and of course here in the region where I'm living in the Middle East, some people, they don't want to send their data to the cloud, and they assume that, when I say a SaaS model, subscription model, that means cloud, which is outside my data center. But yeah, you're right. I've seen a lot of vendors that say, hey, look, we can have the same software hosted in your data center, but it's going to be still a subscription model.
You got to pay a lot of money for it.
Yeah, of course. But to be honest, it's a model that proved itself over the years.
I think so.
Yeah, and people, when I tell them, guys, you're using SaaS for a long time. I said, how? I said, yeah, because when you started using the email service provided by Google and Microsoft, this is SaaS, right? I said, oh yeah. So it's not like something completely new, of course, but the charging from B2B perspective is different. Now, you've talked, Steve, about the value selling, right? So yeah. Now, honestly, I think people confuse, value selling to just, the price point perspective, while I believe there's a lot of other factors that can be blended within the value selling itself. Now, I need to hear from the expert, which is you, Steve, a little bit more about value selling and how in SaaS specifically, the value selling becomes key, and how companies, they can put the appropriate, I would say, metrics to make sure that, yes, they are selling on the value without taking into consideration the price only.
Yeah, yes. I mean, I think value-based selling to me is this. A sale can only occur, in my opinion, if buyers are either looking for a solution to a stated need or willing to discuss that a problem exists. And I think that is a principle built into the selling system we have. They have to be able to discuss that there's a discrepancy between where they are today and where they want to be. Okay. And I think value-based selling is the ability to close that gap. So if I can show you our capability of closing that gap between where you are today and where you need to be, and we can do that, and I ask you the question, what would it mean to your organization if we were able to do that? You're articulating value. So how do you do that both in a new account setting and in a account management setting? And it's a difficult question because interest can come from many levels of an organization. It could be passed down from executives to managers, and people. When you engage somebody from a new account standpoint, you're typically engaging at a user or manager level, and they will always tell you, "We know what we want. We know what we think. We know what we want," and that's a general question. But many times they do not see the periphery of what they can have. So what we've developed is something called the Power Index. And the Power Index is an index that says, here's everything our solution can deliver for you. Now, if we're selling into a vertical like investment banking or private equity, the Power Index would have various categories. Here's everything we can do in deal origination. Here's everything we can do in deal management. Here's everything the system will give you in fundraising. If you're selling a horizontal solution, it's more about operations, administration, process, integration, configuration, and those kind of things. But we show all of the things you can receive. And then we say this, Mehmet, we have a two-step sales process. First thing I'm going to do is show you an overview of our system just for you to get the look and feel. The second thing is I really need to understand how I can add value to your organization. And to do that, we have a tool called the Power Index. And I'm going to show you, if you're responsible for deal origination, everything we can do for you. Tell me where you're underpowered. That's step number one. Tell me where you're underpowered. And once I understand that, step two is, once we understand where you're underpowered, we'll show you how our system can deal with those issues. And together, I'm going to ask you to put a value on that. What would it mean to your organization if you're able to do it? And then we say, if I can show you value and you can articulate it, would you introduce me to the other members of the buying team? And by the way, besides yourself, who are they? That's what we do. But value is closing the gap between where you are today and where you want to be. In an existing account, it's cross-selling and upselling and going to other people within the organization and having that same discussion, introduced by the people who you're currently working with. So it's a consistent effort in looking at how you can add value to a company. And so that is value to me. And this enables a buyer to buy versus you to sell. I mean, you're not selling anymore. Once you do that Power Index, the buyer is actually buying. Yeah, we really do need this. I didn't know you did that. Boy, that's interesting. Can you tell me more about it? Okay, well, if we did that, what would it mean to you? And you have to substantiate that over time. And it has to be ongoing. And I think if you do that, you have the ability to have a customer for life. They have to understand what they're getting from the system. Many SaaS solutions today are building AI capabilities inside and so forth. And that is something that you consistently have to do. But showing that to existing clients and helping them through that process is adding value. So I hope I answered your question.
You did indeed, Steve. Of course, one of the other points you mentioned, which I think they are very important, that today you gave like around 50-60% of the buyers, you said they go out and try to find solution. Now here, that means there is a big, I would say, responsibility on the marketing team in making sure that these buyers are finding about our solution as a SaaS company.
Right.
Now, how much, in your opinion, if I want to divide the responsibility between marketing, SDRs or inside sales, hunters, as we call them in sales terminology, the people who goes after new accounts. So how do you think the best structure would be to have, a healthy pipeline? And, for people who are listening to us, and you are a startup founder, you're going to think about this, about building a healthy pipeline. This will help you also when you go after investments. So how do you organize this in today's world, Steve? Like, how do you divide the responsibility between these teams?
Well, I think first of all, they have to be integrated and talk to each other all the time. I think marketing takes the lead, in my opinion. Today, it's much more about marketing than selling. Marketing is out there with content, and it's showing the prospective buyers that you're a leader, that you understand the problems that they have. You're not just talking about your products or services. It's about how you solve problems. 86% of decisions, according to HubSpot, are made by referencing like customers or customers that you know, right? And so you have to constantly make that reference and be present all the time. So I think marketing is key. Now, once you look at interest, people, open up an email or they communicate with you. I think you then have to have a pre-sales organization, we'll call it that, to engage the potential buyer. This is different than selling. So far, the salesperson hasn't entered into the picture. And I think as you engage them, you have to distinguish those that you can nurture. So I think out of the vast audience out there, there's a number of people, as you contact them and have discussions with them, and the Power Index is a great way to do it. You then begin to develop a nurture list. These are people that have communicated with you, that have expressed an interest, that you've talked to, but are maybe not ready to do anything, but you just nurture them differently than your normal, marketing, inbound, outbound marketing. It's more, you're talking to them and you're developing a relationship. And at some point in time, you're introducing the sales team. So I think that is extremely important to develop that pre-sales organization that reports to marketing, but it's the link between sales and marketing. And you just can't I don't believe salespeople are going to make cold calls. Nobody wants a cold call today. But I do think marketing can drive interest, and interest can be evaluated. And once interest is shown, you need to engage. And I think you need to engage emotionally. Simon Sinek, on his podcast, why, the power of why, does a great job in distinguishing how decisions are made from the parts of the brain. I mean, the neocortex of the brain, I'm quoting him now, is a way that people can get a lot of information, but they're not going to make decisions based on that. I think in your marketing, in your outreach, you have to show emotion. You have to show why you're doing it. You have to get the client to use the other part of the brain, the limbic brain, LAMBIC, to say, boy, these are people that I want to do something with. They know what they're talking about. I just like that. I think that is very important because that drives decisions. And by the way, they've done business with customers that are in my market. They're in my vertical, blah, blah, blah. And so I think that refining that is the key. I mean, selling, we have a system that is 5 steps. Each phase has certain things that a salesperson has to do. But that's the easy part. It's getting the attention of the prospect and getting in there to do that. Initially, that's the hard part today. And marketing trumps sales in my mind.
I can't agree more with you, Steve. And this is, something that I'm a big believer also as well. I come from technical background, but, once I shifted a little bit to work with companies that are in the tech space, as first pre-sales, then in sales. I've seen the power of marketing, because you need to have demand generation, and then, as you mentioned, you start to nurture these cold leads, you convert them to hot leads, then you involve the field team to do demos and all this. Now, but recently we started to see something. Again, I'm not judging, I'm not biased, but I like to ask you, Steve, this question. So we started to see a trend, especially with SaaS companies, to use like specific sales processes and methodologies to follow. And you see the leaders that keep shifting from one company to another, taking the same processes from one company to the other, and they think that what worked in company X will work in company Y. Mm-hmm. Do you think this is a right approach to do it, or still there is a personalization factor that would affect the sales process? And not only the sales process, like, I mean, the whole thing from qualifying, if there is an opportunity or not, and then later on, taking all this. So we know like there are a lot of methodologies out there for sales, processes. But do you think like just copy pasting in every single company is something healthy on the long run, or we need to add this, personalization factor to make sure that we are succeeding and we're not falling into the trap that, hey, company X did this, let's implement it here?
I think I might ask a very, very good question. I always come from my experience is always based on complex selling. And I think that's the difference. If you are selling something that is a complex sale, and I define that by saying there's multiple buyers that have to get involved in order to make the decision. So there's users, there's the technical folks, there's a finance person. Usually there's a team. I think you have to have a salesperson in that process, and that person has to be skilled at engaging at one point in the organization, wherever it is, and showing value there, and then asking the right questions to get to the other buyers in the organization. I think that is critical, because even though 57, 60% can be done, without the sales, at some point for a complex sale, you need somebody to lead it through the process. Now this is interesting. You say that, because what we do is we chart. So we have a 5-step process. It starts with qualify, then we go to verify, then we go to a solution, and then we go to positioning, then solution, and then close. What we do is it is a complex sale. Now, a complex sale can take 5 to 6 months to close, but we look at every one of those phases and we measure the length of the phase, how long it's taken to do it, and the win rate based on that phase. Now think of it. So if you have a 6-month sales process, and you're in verify, which is the second phase, the goal in verify is to eliminate no decision. If I'm going to work with you, I'm going to make sure that you're going to make a decision. We could win or we can lose, but I don't want to go with 4 or 5 months and have you say, well, we're not going to do anything. Okay. So that is the purpose of verify. And there's a number of things you need to do in that phase. You have to confirm their interest, their reason for buying. You have to conduct the demo. You have to look at the power index. You have to agree that if I show value, you can introduce me to other people. You have to understand who the other buyers are. And then you have to repeat that process with each one of those. So as you go through, verification to us is a 30-day process, and we get a 25% chance of winning after we complete it. Okay. We measure that. And then you go to positioning. Once we're finished with positioning, it's a higher level. It's 50% win rate. And it's a 45-day process. I can tell you based on those metrics, the 5 phases, what your sales obligation is, what the average cost of a deal is. If I know the win rate and the time to closure, I can tell you exactly what you need in your pipeline at any time to make your number. Now, we have, something called a productivity index that does that. So what does all that mean? It means that in a complex sale, you have to engage people. That takes time. You got to measure that. You got to measure that everybody is doing it correctly, and that you have a repeatable, measurable process. And I believe that takes people. Something more simple that can be looked at, I can check the boxes and you have a good reputation. That's different, but that's not a complex sale.
Absolutely. Now, so we touched base on how, especially, and we're talking purely on SaaS models, which can actually apply in others, but we're talking about SaaS. And you mentioned, Steve, like, of course, we started how to get the attention of the buyers, and then how to, get inside the account. And then you just gave very good metrics also to see how well we are doing in our sales process. Now, at the beginning, at the very beginning, you mentioned something about, and this is pretty much very common now in SaaS business, when you have to do this upsell and cross-sell, and you need some organizations, they call them customer success team, some organizations, they call them the technical account managers team. Nevertheless, so these are the guys who their mission is to make sure that first, customers get what they were promised to have, and second, try always to upsell and cross-sell with these customers. So now here, how much is important first to have this customer-centric culture within the SaaS organization, first to convert this to a healthy relationship, I would say. And also from your experience, because some people would maybe wonder, especially people who are doing SaaS business for the first time, should I hire one person for every account? Like, what is a good ratio also to have this proper customer success team down the road without, of course, breaking the bank, I would say?
Well, I'll say that there are two different skills. New account selling is a different skill set and involves a different personality than account management. Okay, account management has both. You have to you have to sell. You have to have this desire to close business, but you also have to be strategic, and you have to be very adept at relationship building. So it's a different individual, different thought process, and I think that. You stop me here if I'm not answering your question, but I don't think one person could wear two hats. I think you need people who are selling new accounts, and you need an individual or two initially that is working with your customers as you start up. Ultimately, a good SaaS organization would be able to say, if we did not sell another new account this year, we can live profitably off our customer base. And you have to have a culture of perpetuity with the customer. So what does that mean? When you first close business and you introduce the account manager, you have to anticipate that you're going to be tested right from the beginning. A, the configuration is wrong. B, this is not what we expected. Or how do we do this better? So you're going to be tested as an organization right at the beginning. If that account manager can facilitate the solutions to your issues in a positive way, that person has just earned your respect. If they start pointing fingers, they're not. So part of that is the anticipation, and you're really changing behavior here of people, is having a culture which says, let's anticipate the fact that we're going to have some issues early on. Let's work with you as to how we resolve those. Let's get our whole organization ready to resolve those issues. So we get past that. And then once that happens and you're in a position of where you've earned the customer's respect, then you have to look at, okay, you have to map the organization. Where are we today? And where are the opportunities that we need to go to within the organization? Who are the people that can get us there? And how do I interface with senior executives? What do senior executives want to hear? Okay, they don't want to hear about your product or, we have this pricing special. They want to continuously understand how you can add value to their organization. And you have to show that people, people can conceptually understand, sure, if you're selling me a legal system and you can, and I'm only using it for contracts and I can buy your system for other things. I get that. I understand what that means. But how does that affect the way data flows? How does data flow as a result of that? How do you make better decisions as a result of that? What can I actually do to make this thing work? You have to have people that are adept at doing that. And that is an account manager. And I think that is the most critical part of the business once you have a customer. And these folks have to be trained to do that, and they have to work hand in hand with your technical folks, and they have to facilitate resolution, almost as if they were the client.
Absolutely.
So,
absolutely. And I want, because I'm a little bit biased, Steve, as well. Part of this, sales engineers, SEs, play a major role in this thing. Of course, I'm talking here about, solutions that are a little bit they need the solution architect or the solution engineer to be involved. I was one of these folks back in the day, so I'm a little bit biased, but also take care of these guys. And I'm not saying this because I was an SE. I also shifted to an account executive role, but they played a major part of understanding. And I think, this the value index that you just mentioned at the beginning also, Steve. So SEs are the ones who are on the ground with the technical people there who can actually grab this information for you. So this is really something I would advise highly also to trust your SEs, trust also their business acumen also as well. So 100%.
And have capabilities where you empower the customer. If they have an advocate on their side who's willing to work with your folks to learn more about the solution, recognize that in the form of something, financial or whatever, because at the end of the day, you're going to need that group of that customer advocates to help you. Okay.
Absolutely.
The biggest thing we have now is AI, and everybody is struggling with AI. Presents a tremendous opportunity, I think, because especially for SaaS businesses, because what I facilitate some executive boards, and I ask some of these folks what they're doing in AI. How do you look at AI today? And one of them said something, and it resonates with me. And after discussing it with the board, they all agreed. We want to use AI to take the low cost work away from the high cost people. So what does that mean? It means that you need to use artificial intelligence to do what gather information, help, position things so that better decisions can be made. What does that mean in the SaaS business? It means adoption. If I'm working with you and you are interested in artificial intelligence and how you can get a competitive advantage, you need to have every aspect of my system. You need to have data across the board. So I have an opportunity then to upsell tremendously if I can show you how use artificial. If I have artificial intelligence built into the system and I can show you how to use it, I'm going to get better adoption because you're going to want to be competitive. And so that's a tremendous opportunity that I don't think a lot of people see today. And I think if you play that well, again, your technical folks have to develop it, especially relationship management, things like that are huge.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Steve, as we almost come to an end, just tell me a little bit more about the upcoming book that I think it's supposed to be available in April or May.
And it's probably going to be available in May. It's called Winning at SaaS. And it's a playbook for CEOs and CROs of early stage SaaS companies. Okay. And really it talks about, the economics of a SaaS business. It talks about, having a culture that is customer-centric. It talks about how to build alignment within your organization, the importance of aligning sales, marketing, and account management. It then gives you step-by-step. It's a playbook to say, it's based on something called the Tafaro Growth Accelerator, a system that I developed over the years and have refined. It's a selling system, but it's different for account management than sales. So it takes you through every step of that system. And it's a great playbook for someone who is, some investor has put you in a position where you're running this business. And it's a book it's a system that has been very, very successful in with clients that I have worked with. So it's a resource, and it's going to be out in, I think, May. My website stevetafaro.com will be live this month. We're blogging now. We're writing blogs. We're doing everything. So I've become an quote unquote author, Mehmet. I now have a pipe and an ascot and a jacket and all this kind of stuff. I'm only kidding. But my whole goal is to give back, is to give something of value to folks that are building a SaaS sales and marketing machine, and hopefully they'll come to me for speaking or to high level advisory work or whatever, and that's what I'm trying to do. Absolutely.
And it's good you mentioned. So by the time, I believe, by the time you're listening, I think the website will be up. So I'm gonna put the link there. So I'm gonna put the link in the show note, and you can follow Steve also on LinkedIn, I believe, also as well. So you can go and check when the book is out. And I believe this is a very valuable resource, Steve, especially because I talk to a lot of first-time founders who are exactly to your point, who are looking for some funds, and the first thing that the investor gonna go and ask them, okay, what's your plan? How are you gonna go to market? And from what you just described today on this episode, and the discussion that we had, the book would be, I would say, kind of a roadmap.
Yes.
And I hope that founders will find it beneficial, especially first-time founders. I know, first-time founders, probably they don't have, majority of the time, any background or any knowledge probably about sales and marketing. Maybe they know a little bit from here and there, but this is very good resource, I would say. So, Steve, really, I appreciate the time today that you gave to me this evening for me, so people know that we always have this time difference thing. Any final thing you want to say before we close?
I just want to thank you for the opportunity, and it was a pleasure being on your podcast. And any of your listeners that I'd be happy to talk with them. I'd be happy to, help them in any way. You can get that information from the website. We will, in the book, after each chapter, I have something called Comments from the Experts. And these are people that have used the system, who make their own comments in their own business. And that's something that we can bring to the table too. I get plenty of folks that have used it successfully. But anyway, thank you very much. I appreciate the time. Thank you.
It was my pleasure, Steve. And this is usually how I end my episode. So this is for the audience. If you just discovered this podcast by thank you for passing by. If you like it, please subscribe. We are available on all podcasting platforms. And please also share it with your friends and colleagues. I really appreciate that. And if you are one of the loyal followers who keep coming, sending me their suggestions, comments, and their recommendations, thank you very much. Keep that coming. I really appreciate all the feedback that you sent to me. I read every single message you sent. So keep that coming. And thank you very much for tuning in. We will be with you again in the next episode very soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Hit that subscribe button. Share the show with your tech-savvy friends and fellow entrepreneurs. And leave us a review on your favorite podcast app. Your support means the world to us.